So with that, welcome everybody. Good evening and welcome to our Town Board of the Town of Austin work session for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. My fancy flag. Thank you to Pete Connolly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So I have a few announcements to make, and then we'll get into the meat of our meeting. Oh, good. We do have Miriam. Miriam, you made it. Okay. Glad to see you. Hi. We sure got walloped this week with Winter Storm Orlena, and it already sounds like we may be getting another round of snow early next week. And I know some of you probably already know that the snow seems to have started up again this afternoon and into the evening. I know that our guys are out there on the road salting this evening. So hopefully everybody is staying in their homes and staying safe. I have to admit, it is really beautiful outside. Can't deny that. It's a lot of snow, but it's really pretty. And I didn't get to make my snow angel yesterday, but hopefully I'll get to do that tomorrow. As many of us are still shoveling out, some who weren't able to help out at home because they were here in town keeping our roads safe and still are, deserve a big thank you. That is, of course, our highway and parks departments. Our crews were out starting on Sunday night to prepare the roads and to keep them clear for emergency vehicles. Also, we know that Austin Police Department was out and about helping people who may not have heeded the warnings and whose cars got stuck or who had to go to work or who had other snow-related difficulties. And our volunteer fire department and volunteer ambulance corps were both on hand to respond to calls. I want to extend a very special thank you to the town and village employees who braved the cold and blustery wind to help everyone this weekend, including our tax receiver, Holly Perlowitz and her team, and Dale Brennan's Village of Austin finance team who came in on Saturday to help residents pay their taxes before the storm. We were trying to keep them from coming to us on Monday, but guess what? They also came in again yesterday for any last-minute taxpayers who somehow made it to town hall. They also worked all day and night answering calls and emails from taxpayers who needed help navigating the online payment system. Huge thanks to our town clerk, Sue Donnelly, who volunteered to help take temperatures, and she helped Holly, Dale, and their teams with the COVID screenings for visitors. And also big thanks to our highway superintendent, Pete Connolly, for making sure that Holly and Sue made it to and from the building safely, even with all of the snow that we got. The Austin Police Department kept us apprised of the road clearings with regular Facebook Live updates as well, and their Policia de Austin social media pages, where they also shared helpful storm information for our Spanish-speaking neighbors. I hope everyone is now home safe and warm. Of course, the snow has not stopped our fight against COVID. Many eligible residents continue to struggle to gain access to getting the COVID-19 vaccine administered. Eligibility requirements have not been expanded yet, but if you qualify under the 1A or 1B criteria, you should register, even if it is for a month or two out from now. Over 7 million New Yorkers are now eligible for that vaccine. Eligible groups include, but are not limited to, doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers, people aged 65 and over, first responders, teachers, public transit workers, grocery store workers, and public safety workers. Vaccines are available at pharmacies, hospitals, and through local health departments statewide. Please contact your provider of choice to schedule your vaccine appointment. You can use the state website for scheduling an appointment at a New York state-run site only. To determine eligibility and schedule appointments at one of these sites, use the Am I Eligible app, which is available on the New York State website. Remember, both vaccines require 2 doses for effectiveness. Appointments are not transferable. If you have questions about the vaccine, New York has a hotline to help you get information, 1-833-NYS-4, the number 4, VAX. You can also visit the New York State COVID vaccine website at covid19vaccine.health.ny.gov or call 211 for local information. There are some vaccine scams out there which you can report by calling 1-833-VAX-SCAM. The vaccines are in high demand, so the number of scams is increasing. As a reminder, the vaccine is free and you cannot pay to hold your place in line or skip ahead of others. Also, many state-run vaccination sites were closed yesterday and today due to the storm, including the Westchester County Center site, which is a state-run site. If you had an appointment yesterday or today, you will be contacted to reschedule for later this week. Last week, Governor Cuomo rescinded his yellow zone designation for the portions of Ossining that had been in that zone, which is very helpful for our local businesses. It does not, however, mean that we are out of the woods. Testing appointments were delayed this week because of the storm, so please do contact your provider to reschedule. There are a number of local testing sites available for residents. COVID-19 tests are free, also like the vaccine. Residents can use the New York State website feature called Find a Test Site Near You to help schedule appointments at Open Door, CVS, Health Smart Pharmacy, and many other local sites. You can also schedule an appointment at Star of Bethlehem Church on their website, starbeth, B as in boy, C as in cat.org. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Reverend Jones, who, after helping so many people in the midst of this pandemic, himself did get sick. We are thinking of him and wishing him a speedy recovery. The Ossining Recreation Center opened as a warming center during Monday's storm. This is just another example of some of the extended services our departments, local organizations, and volunteer services offer. Later tonight, we're going to hear a little bit about our little free libraries in Ossining, which were converted into mini food pantries for the winter. Food distributions have continued across town. Resource centers are helping residents navigate this difficult time and prepare for the future. I continue to be impressed by this town's dedication to its neighbors and anyone who needs a helping hand. February is Black History Month, and we are so excited that we have many events in and around town taking place to celebrate. Here are just a few. Bethany Arts Community is hosting Ossining Village historian Joyce Chirac Cole for their exhibit entitled Ossining Black History and Culture, Resilience, Dedication, Excellence. The webinar starts at 2 p.m. on Saturday, and information for joining is on the Bethany Arts Community Facebook page, and I think you can also go there in person. Bethany is hosting a number of other great Black History Month events in February, including musical performances, a closer look at the art of the Harlem Renaissance, and artist talks. I encourage you to check out their website and Facebook page to register. February 13th from 5 to 6, they are sponsoring an artist talk entitled Table Wizard Spinny Spin and the Separate 5 MCs, the untold story of the beginning of Ossining hip hop culture with Spencer Thomas. It sounds fascinating, and you can tune in from the comfort of your own home. Just register for free at bethanyarts.org. The Sing Sing Prison Museum's Justice Talks series is holding a conversation on Ossining's Black history on February 18th at 6 p.m. The event will take a look at prominent business owners, women leaders, and those who were employed by Sing Sing Prison. You can register through the Sing Sing Prison Museum's Facebook page or website. This week is National Gun Violence Survivors Week, and we are proud to honor a request from Moms Demand Action, a group that advocates for gun safety and regulation, with a proclamation from the board in recognition of Gun Violence Survivors Week, in recognition of Gun Violence Survivors Week, as a reminder that COVID-19 is not the only threat that we are facing in our society. An astounding number of Americans have been affected by gun violence, and every year, nearly 39,000 Americans are killed in acts of gun violence. This proclamation serves as a reminder that gun ownership is a serious responsibility and that common sense safety laws can prevent tragic outcomes. And just a couple of highlights. I know I already told you 39,000 Americans are killed in acts of violence, and nearly 85,000 more are shot and wounded. And by early February, more Americans are killed with guns than are killed in our peer countries in an entire calendar year. 58% of American adults, including 68% of Black and Latino Americans or someone they have cared for, have experienced gun violence in their lifetime, demonstrating the reach and impact gun violence has on communities across America. And whereas Firearms are the leading cause of death for children and teens, and Americans and communities across the nation are working to end the senseless violence by advocating for common sense gun safety legislation. And whereas by commemorating National Gun Violence Survivors Week, February 1st through the 7th, cities and towns across America will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives stolen by gun violence. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Ossining, New York declares February 1st to the 7th to be National Gun Violence Survivors Week, and we encourage all residents to support their community's efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. And now on to a little bit happier subject, which is that T-Town's week-long virtual Eagle Fest continues with many events for the whole family. Visit ttown.org/events/EagleFest 2021 for tickets and more information. Eagle Fest looks different than in previous years, but is equally informative and fun. Well, maybe not quite as fun, but it's still fun. Learn virtually with T-Town, then get outside and see if you can spy some eagles on the banks of the beautiful Hudson River. And that is it for me. Is there anybody, any of my colleagues that have any additional announcements, any board members with additional announcements? Anything they want to share? Alrighty, and hearing none, we are going to move into our work session agenda. Up first, we are going to be talking about the donation of a little free library for Gerlach Park, and hear a little bit about the Little Free Libraries program in Ossining, which is an update from the Ossining PTA. Northern, can you want to hit mute on yours or not?
Beg your pardon?
Can you hit mute? Just because I'm hearing a lot of background noise coming from your.
No, I'll see about the noise. I'm okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, so tonight we have Miriam Risco, who's the president of the Ossining Council of PTAs, as well as school district parents Melanie Carnsu and Antonia Sameo with us. Melanie and Antonio are neighbors in the Gerlach Park area of town, and they had approached the Ossining PTA about setting up a new Little Free Library at Gerlach Park. As many of you know, we do have a couple of Little Free Libraries that had been put into two of our other parks, Ryder Park and Engle Park at the waterfront, and these have been homes to books, and you'll hear a little bit more information about what's been happening in them recently from Miriam. So she's going to give us a little bit of an update, remind everybody what the program is about, how it evolved, and then we'll hear from Melanie and Antonia about what their plans are to help us upkeep the one at Gerlach should the board choose to accept the donation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Miriam Risco.
Thank you.
Oh.
Sorry, there I go. Okay, hi. You got the video, right? Because I don't have it ready to screen share. So you guys have it, I'm assuming, right?
Yes,
okay, well,
just let me know when you want to play it. And
okay, sounds good. So I am Miriam Risco, and I'm here today not as Miriam Risco Music, but as Miriam Risco Ossining PTA Council President. And I'm here to talk about the Little Free Libraries. So I've been working with the PTA boards and the Ossining School District on this project for many years. We started in 2019 and we put in, the PTA paid for it, and the school district installed 4 Little Free Libraries, one at Park, one at Brookside, one at Roosevelt, and one at Claremont. If you're not familiar with what a Little Free Library is, it's a cute little, it looks like a little cabinet on a post, and they're very cute, and they have like, it's a company called Little Free Libraries, which is where we get them from. And we also added one actually at our music school too, because I felt that it's a great initiative and I thought it would be a nice thing to have there also. And then there are also 2 other ones in the town. There's one at Ryder and one at Engle. So when we first put these libraries in, they picked up a lot of traction. The PTA started hosting all kinds of really interesting events there. We started doing like monthly readings, and we had different kinds of activities and things that we did there. The Girl Scouts came. We had all kinds of school district people reading books, and we were even been kind of forward thinking because we were trying to broadcast them on Facebook Live. Little did we know that this would turn into our whole world after that, and we'd be doing everything that way. And you'll see it in the video that we're going to show. But then all of a sudden, of course, the pandemic hit, and for a while, the little libraries were kind of quiet. You know, everybody was sort of afraid to venture out, and we weren't really doing anything with them over the course of that whole time when we were shut down. And then when people started to come out again, we started to hear about this thing called the Little Free Pantry Initiative, which people were changing libraries over to pantries. And by pantries, it wasn't just about food, it was about just any kind of pantry item that you might need. You know, people like we were trying to fill it up with non-perishable foods, but things like soap and shampoo and just whatever, paper towels, toilet paper, anything that people might want to just grab and go if they needed it. And it really took off. It was a really nice community kind of initiative. The PTA boards were amazing. Everybody got really involved and started putting committees together, and all the people on all the boards, we have 4 PTA boards, they just started really working together, and people were taking ownership of these libraries and filling them. And we had little drop areas where if you couldn't get to a library, you could bring food directly to like the Tasty Table and La Brea Dance and drop off, and we would bring it to the libraries. So then this has been going on since December, and we were going to end this pantry initiative at the end of January, but we decided to keep it going because the libraries are really getting used a lot now. So we're going to extend it through February 13th. And then after that, we're going to start transitioning back to libraries. We are going to be putting signs up on the libraries of where people can get food and any items they need, so they know that, you know, it's not the end of that. There's still availability around town. But we have a lot of exciting things planned for the libraries as we transition them back to libraries. And I think that they play a very important role in the community. People love to venture out and take their little kids to them and pick up a book. Everybody loves to drop off a book at them. One of the things we want to do going forward is something called an Action Book Club, where we kind of work with the school district on this, and participants plan, they read and discuss a book and then take part in a service project to benefit the community. So we thought that would be kind of a nice thing to do. I know that right now it's really tough for kids to get community service hours with everything that's going on. So that might be a nice way to offer kids that opportunity to do that while interacting and also reading, which is a big piece of this. We were very excited when Melanie came to us and said that she and her group were interested in putting another one in, because ideally, I think it would be great if they were all over town. They're the cutest little thing. They are so like little stress. They just promote community. There's so many opportunities to create collaboration with them. I actually wrote down something that off the website that I could read to you about what they are. So it says, the goal of the Little Libraries is to get books into people's hands. Little libraries complement public libraries and increase access to books. They create collaboration and become a fun outdoor landmark where readers can gather, and it offers endless collaborative opportunities complementing all the services at schools and public libraries. So they're just nothing but positive. And the greatest thing about them is they're not even permanent structures. You know, you dig a hole and put them in. So if ever it didn't work out, you could just take them out and put them somewhere else. So eventually I think it would be really nice to put them in more places. So they're warm and inviting, and they just really, they encourage people to gather. So if you want to show that video, it kind of tells our little story about the little libraries and how the PTA was involved and all that. So.
Margot, come get a book. Anai, Amari, come over here. Jaden, come over here, baby. Come on, Chico, sit over here.
greetings from a couple of our teachers and also some of our local Girl Scouts. So we're going to start off with Mrs. Fisher and Ms. Ford, who are going to, from Roosevelt, who are going to read a few books.
Look, Stella Luna landed headfirst into the nest, startling the baby birds. Stella Luna quickly clambered from the nest and hung out of sight. What was that?
Awesome. I just wanted to mention that there's also one at the corner of M. Wilton and Walden Road, so not too far from the high school. My neighbor put one in, I think early on, so it's they're every place. It's a great video.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to answer any questions if you, before you talk to Melanie, if you want, if, you know.
Yeah, why don't you guys talk a little bit about what you're proposing, and then we can ask questions to all three of you. If you guys want to talk about what you're thinking about for Gerlach.
Sure. Miriam, my friend Antonia is here representing our neighborhood as well. I met Miriam a couple weeks ago when I was donating some pantry items because I read that the little conversion was going on in the libraries, and then we got chatting about how much of a network and a community the little libraries really are, and I just got excited and wanted one in my neck of the woods. So I reached out on a local Gmail group, and Antonia got excited, and we received probably 12 or 13 responses for to help fund it, and we just think it's great that we can share books with each other, promote literacy, get rid of our kids' books when it's time, and you know, kind of declutter in a very sustainable fashion, and share our wealth of reading with our neighbors.
Awesome. Antonia, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on Melanie. When she sent the email out to our community, there were several neighbors that were very eager and willing to jump in and support this initiative. I have a 5-year-old, similar to Melanie. I really love the idea of early literacy, helping students find their love of learning. I had mentioned to her a little while ago prior to this that we were going to be talking about this, and she said, Mama, you're going to put in a library? So, you know, I could see the excitement in her eyes, especially because we haven't been able to go to the public library during this pandemic. She is tired of reading the same books with me every night. There are tons of books that we are ready to share with others who, you know, can just go and grab a book. So I'm excited. I think that it's a great way to build community. And I know from the outpouring of support from our neighbors that it'll be well loved and used within our community.
Awesome. So just a couple of comments that I wanted to just add in, and then you guys could respond to a little bit. We unfortunately, a couple of the libraries and our parks have been vandalized a few times. So we've had to replace parts for them a couple of times, which, you know, isn't a big deal, but it just seems to be unfortunate that it's taking place. And also the school district originally had proposed the two in the park to us and had said that their bookmobile would be replacing and kind of monitoring them. And it might have just been a little bit of a challenge. Obviously, you know, everything's a challenge this past year, but I talked to both of you about that and communicated with you and Miriam in an email, and you had a proposal about that. So did you want to just talk about that a little bit? How are we going to keep up with the little free library at Gerlach?
Sure. I think that we, as a way of really keeping ourselves responsible, we would not elect, but we would choose ambassadors to the library for like a volunteer time period of say 1 or 2 years, and then those ambassadors would be responsible for just doing a little drive-by, making sure it's not empty, making sure the door hasn't been left open, and if any repairs were needed, which hopefully that wouldn't happen, you know, enlisting one of our handy neighbors to help us with the carpentry work. And then at the end of our ambassadorship, then we would get new people to come in and step up. So there would always be somebody sort of in charge of overseeing the library without just a kind of petering out of interest, or if somebody moved away, they could transfer their responsibility to a new person, and it would just kind of keep the enthusiasm alive.
Great. And just again, for my board colleagues, I did speak to our parks foreman about where we might situate this. And originally I thought he had suggested the pavilion, but upon further discussion, I think he was a little confused, and it seemed like he was thinking it would be better by the larger parking lot, like just outside of the baseball field, so that it would be more accessible. Certainly at times like this, that little pull-in area at Gerlach that's closer to the pavilion and playground isn't quite as conducive, I don't think, to easy access. So that seems to be the better place, and just set back enough so that it wouldn't get pushed over by a plow or a whole bunch of snow like today. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more people traffic in the upper part of the park, because everyone parks there when they're playing soccer, and then they'll make their way down to the pavilion and the play area. But
right,
that makes sense to me.
All right, great. So with that, I'm just gonna open it up to board colleagues to see if you have any questions or thoughts or suggestions. And
Can I just add one thing? I just want to let you know, once the libraries picked up traction, they were sort of self-sufficient. Like once people heard about them, they just started filling them up with books. And, I know the one at Ryder and at Engel were a bit of a different story because they weren't like part of this family of libraries, but now that they are, and we've made this map and stuff, I like our library at our music school, people drop the most amazing books in there and take books, and I rarely even have to put books in there. So I feel like also that's just something, it takes a little while for people to know where they all are, but they kind of like, you know, they really work on their own. So, you know, it does require, like our handle fell off the other day, but I don't think it was vandalism. I think it just fell off. So they require people to look at it, but it's not a whole lot of work. I really, it's like the easiest, best little, I don't know, it's just cute and little. It's just great. So
They are really cute.
Yeah.
I have to admit. And actually one of the two that are in the park, I think were built, donated time by Tom Clements, who is the husband of one of the teachers in the district, or maybe she might be retired. I'm not 100% sure, but he's also actually doing work right now on our cemetery, Superintendent's Cottage at Dale Cemetery. He's an excellent contractor slash carpenter slash all around good guy. So we're grateful for that as well. I don't know if any of my board colleagues wanted to ask questions or have any kind of discussion about this while we have our friends here.
Liz, did you want to go? I see your mouth moving.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute myself. I'm having technological difficulties today. First, I'd like to say I think it's an amazing program. I loved it as a little free library. I dropped off some of my kids' books. I see a lot of kids in the park actually reading, you know, under a tree after they've been in the spray park. I think it's wonderful. And I'm even more thrilled that it turned into the little pantries. It seemed to be helping an awful lot of people. You know, I'm one of the community members, and I know many people have donated food, and the next day it's just gone. So there's a lot of food insecurity, and just this is a simple way for all of us to be able to help. I'm so thankful to Miriam and the PTA. I'm super excited to have another one coming, and I think it's just great. I do have one question though. The ones in our parks, is our park department able to dig them out when it snows?
Are they able to?
Are they doing it?
I can't tell you the answer to that question, since I think that probably I haven't given it much thought since until today. I do think they are not as easily accessible in the snow in our parks right now. And I don't know that lots of people were going there, but we can certainly look into it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
we can put, you know, the way the PTA sort of worked this out was we put like ambassadors on each library. And so even today we were messaging and reminding people to dig it out themselves. So, you know, we hope that that's sort of what catches on so that it's not extra work, obviously, for anybody to dig out. But if people are taking ownership of it, maybe we can sort of encourage that more as we go. So.
Very great.
Oh, I think it's a wonderful idea. Thank you all for getting so involved in the community. My kids are a little older now, older teenagers, but it would have been wonderful to have it at a park where, you know, my son's playing soccer and my daughter can either grab a book or give a book. So it's wonderful. So thank you so much.
Anybody else? Councilman Meyer? I can't tell if you're leaning over or not.
No, I think it's great. My 2-year-old loves going through new books as much as possible. So I think it's terrific. So thank you.
I definitely have some books to donate. There's no doubt. I haven't managed to do that yet, but will do. I love giving books as gifts. Like that's my favorite baby gift, is to give tons and tons of books. So anything that we can do to encourage literacy, you know, we're very involved in the Ossining Basics program a few years ago, and I'm not exactly sure where that is right now, but again, the idea is just read, and listen to your kids and talk to them about books. So this seems to encourage that to happen. Councilman Wiltshire, do you have anything that you wanted to add or any questions about it? I know you have to unmute now. That's the tricky part. Do you know how to do that? After we muted you, now we have to unmute you. Jesse. If you scroll around, do you see something that says mute on the bottom left? If you click on that, you have to kind of move the mouse around.
If you also hit the space bar and hold it down.
Ooh, space bar. Tricky. Okay. As soon as you unmute, we're going to come right back to you. Okay? I should never have suggested you muted. That was a bad idea. Oh, here we go. Hi.
Okay. All right. Only thing I was going to say is that I thought that was a good idea from the beginning, and it seemed to be catching on. And I'm going to check on some books myself. And I guess it's mostly for, it's no certain age, is it?
That's a good question. Is it for a certain age? Is it for only children? Or?
It's for anybody. So like, even just as an example, I walked, before we switched over to pantries, I happened to be looking in our little library, and there's a great cookbook, the Silver Palette cookbook. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with it, but somebody put a brand new one in our box, and I love that cookbook. So it's for anybody, and I think it's really nice. It's just inclusive of anybody. And you know, you can even do, Little Free Libraries does a lot of, they send out a lot of newsletters and suggestions of different kinds of activities and things you can do with it. And you could have different theme months and highlight different things that are going on in the community. So it's really whatever you make of it.
Okay, well, thank you.
I think we have consensus that we're going to accept this donation. So do you know what the timing is in terms of when you might be getting this in? That's my only other question.
I don't know what the lead time once you order from their site.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like about 4 weeks or something. And with some of them, they don't all, you have to order the post with it, or it has to be made, because I know with the school district, I can't remember, I think they may have made them. But we ordered ours, and it was very easy to put it together and to put it in. So, and then just make sure you register it with the little library site, because it comes out on their map. Like if you look up Little Free Libraries, you'll see Ossining is now on the map as like a home of a whole lot of Little Free Libraries.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Miriam, for bringing this to Ossining. And I think it's a great initiative, and you know, it's great to see that it's taking off and that it's having many kinds of legs with the pantries also. And I appreciate the entire community stepping up and helping fill them for those who need, and just being there. It's fantastic, and also just supporting literacy.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Again, thanks for coming tonight for the presentation, and we'll just stay in touch about when it comes in. We'll make sure that it gets placed and that we're all on board where that is, and we'll have to officially accept the donation at a upcoming meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so up next we have our proposed battery energy storage system at 381 North Highland Avenue, which is St. Augustine's Church. At last week's legislative session, the town board approved a local law to regulate installations of battery energy storage systems in the town of Ossining. Borrego Solar has been before the planning board for a few months now for a proposed system on the property of St. Augustine's, which is on North Highland. Per the new local law, the town board will now have the opportunity to approve a floating zone for this property. So we thought now would be a good time for Borrego to come to the town board and discuss their proposal. Council Tomadonna, do you have anything to add before I hand it over to the folks from Borrego, or Valerie Menostra, our planner, either one of you?
No, I think you pretty much summed it up. The town board adopted the local law last week, so now it's formally on the books. So because the applicant is still going through the review process, they are not vested in the prior zoning, so this will apply to their property, which means that because it's a tier 2 battery energy storage system, like the board does with the solar energy systems, the applicant makes an application to this board to have that floating zone applied to this specific property. And since it'll be related to this proposal, it seemed like good timing to have the applicant come talk to this board, because the planning board is going through the secret review, And that way this board can provide any comments you may have before the planning board were to issue a determination on secret, at which point it would come back to this board for a public hearing, because you would have to adopt a local law in order to put that zoning in place.
All right then, fantastic. Valerie, anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, I just wanted to touch base with the town board, just to let you know where in the process, as Christy said, it's in front of the planning board. It is still working on finishing the seeker process. Specifically, they're waiting for completion of the archaeological studies for the site. But I just wanted to note that the planning board, so you can just have an idea of like some of the due diligence that has been already put forth in this project. The planning board already conducted a site visit with the Environmental Advisory Council. And the Environmental Advisory Council also provided comments which were worked into the overall site plan that you have been provided. The fire department and building inspector have also reviewed prior site plans, and those comments have also been incorporated into the most current version of the site plan, specifically dealing with the grading of the driveway access to the battery storage system. So, and this project was also submitted to Westchester County per the referral process, and we also received a response from the county with a determination of local jurisdiction. So that's kind of been pretty much brings you up to speed as to what has been done since then, and the comments that have been incorporated into the current site plan that you're being presented tonight.
Excellent. Okay, so with that, Borrego, who is here from Borrego, and floor is all yours.
So from the Borrego team, good evening. From the Borrego team, we've got a couple folks tonight. My name's Mike Conway. I'm our Director of Business Development for Energy Storage. We've got Greg Gibbons on the line as well, who's our civil engineer, who's in charge of the entire permitting process and how we bring projects through various approvals, various authorities' approvals, like your town. And also on the line is Karina Solis. She's our product developer for the project. So I'll just give it a quick introduction before I hand it off to Greg, who really knows most of the nuts and bolts about how the public process works and can speak to those a lot better than I can. So we've got a 5 megawatt proposed standalone battery energy storage system at St. Augustine's property. We approached the church about a year and a half ago as we were responding to a new program that was being released by the state of New York's energy and research arm, NYSERDA, and Con Ed. And under that program, sort of, they're looking for locations for energy storage that, as sort of a new technology, can work in coordination with other clean tech or renewable technologies, though there is no solar or wind at this facility, but sort of they work in concert throughout their coordination where in other areas where they're located in New York's electrical system, to together help clean up the mix of resources that we use to power our electrical system. And specifically for energy storage, the major thing there is to replace some of the dirtier peaking power plants that don't run for very often, only run a couple times a year because they're not very economical, but when they run are among the greatest polluters in the state, and for some of the older ones closer to the city are some of the worst polluters in the country. And so we came across the St. Augustine's property by looking through Con Ed's maps and doing an analysis of some of the parts of Con Ed's system that were appropriate to connect a sort of smallish battery system like this one at 5 megawatts. And we're now under a lease agreement with the church for this battery that's sort of up behind the church, behind the school, sort of set back on their property, where we think it's a pretty appropriate location for it and doesn't bother too many people up there. Thanks, Greg's got that rendering up there. So it's up an access road and it's set pretty far back there. So we think it's a pretty ideal scenario here where it's in a a location where electrically it can do a lot of good for the system. And as far as the aesthetics of the system, it's going to be about as well screened as anything we've developed so far, and pretty well tucked back there, and not very visible from any of the viewpoints that we've analyzed with the help of the planning board. So I think with that, I'll probably pass it off to Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, just to piggyback on that a little bit more. Mike covered some of what I've got written down here for bullet points, but basically it's the battery storage area is tucked back in the back of the site. It's this area right here. You can see there's individual modules, battery modules surrounded by a fence. The fence is a standard 7-foot high fence. It's about a 60 by 110 foot area. And that is fed by a 20-foot wide gravel access road. Does slope downhill at 10%. This meets the standards of the town and has been reviewed by the fire department as well as the building inspector, and they have given us that the go ahead on that. The utility interconnection, so the batteries are over here. Then there's an underground feeder line which runs. We'll have to install that along the edge of the St. Augustine's Loop Ring Road. It runs along the road and then feeds over onto the eastern side of the site, which connects to Route 9A or North Highland via the 3-phase power on that side. We have coordinated with the planning board and the church to provide extensive landscaping. That's what I'm showing right here is a landscaping plan from our landscape architect, Saratoga Associates. This landscaping plan should provide a visual buffer, substantial visual buffer, in addition to how well hidden it already was. The planning board members wanted us to show a little bit more. We thought it was good for the church, and the church agreed. So we came up with a landscaping plan which is actually honeybee friendly, deer resistant. Nothing is fully deer resistant, but somewhat deer resistant. The church actually has a honeybee farm back behind the rectory, which is kind of cool.
We know.
Oh, okay, cool. Then feeding off what Mike said, the battery storage is used to supplement, the high-end peak energy demand. This allows, Con Edison or any power provider to reduce the new infrastructure and upgrades which would be required otherwise to meet the same demand. So, we save, there's a lot less new installations of large equipment and energy equipment that the taxpayers basically end up having to pay, or through your utility bills and other various ways that we end up paying in the long run. And then the system was designed to meet the recently passed battery energy storage system model law, which I think Valerie mentioned. We did review the code before when it was in the draft state, and I think what was passed, we meet all the items for that. And if we don't, it should be something minor that we can maybe tweak to make sure we do meet it. And I'm interested to know more about applying for that application for the blanket waiver. I didn't write it down, but the basically whatever we have to apply for the town board to get the approval to install the system.
Floating zone, yes.
Floating zone, yes, thank you.
Similar to blanket waiver. Yes, at the same time as we approved the battery energy storage, we also approved beekeeping legislation, just so you know. This was something that came to our attention, not that the bees had been there for some time, and we didn't really have a local law in place to make that legal, so we now do. So see how you lifted all ships here.
Great.
Okay, are you guys, do you have more parts of your presentation?
Not really. I mean, if people have questions, we're happy to answer them at this time. I mean, I've got a couple simulations here. This one that I already showed. This one is another view that looks toward where the Hudson and Croton River come together. But in general, that's about it.
Okay. I will allow or encourage my town board colleagues to now ask some questions. I'm sure I'm going to guess that there are a few of them. So maybe, I don't know if should we stop screen sharing for a second, or do you want to leave that up?
Sure.
Let me just find out.
It's up to you.
What? Let's
Stop it.
just leave it up for a second until, okay,
Nope.
let's see. No, that's fine.
Okay.
Let's see who has questions first.
I have a not so serious question. That's where they shoot the fireworks from. Will that be safe?
That's so funny. I was thinking the same thing.
We
Okay,
haven't
it's
taken up
bigger.
all the space. I wasn't aware of that. I don't know if Mike was, but there is a good, we're only taking up about half the space of that open area. So I don't see why they wouldn't be able to, but that might,
It's
might
more the question when the
be
stuff
an issue.
comes falling down, the burning embers come falling down and you don't know where.
Or backfire.
Or backfire. I don't think it's so much about that they wouldn't have enough space to shoot them off, but I think that was funny. That was definitely one of my questions. The reason I think we're also curious is because we installed a spray pad down at our park where we shoot off fireworks, and we thought to cover it, but it really wasn't as effective as we would have hoped. Those burning embers are real. So just, I don't know if St. Augustine's might have to forego fireworks in the future. I don't know if they realize that, but you might want to think about if that's going to be something that's still safe for them to do or not. If they're going to have to rethink that.
Or think about fireproofing the design.
Yeah.
Certainly we'll discuss it
Not
with
giving up
them.
fireworks.
Joking aside, fire safety is a major component of battery energy storage systems, something that the industry takes really seriously. It's typically something we worry about from the inside out rather than from something on the outside. Mostly they're metal containers that are pretty well sealed up, so it's unlikely that something like a hot ember coming down from a firework that didn't blow out in time would have an issue or something like that. But combustion is certainly concerning, right? So if there was a malfunction and something didn't get off the ground, and there's a sort of mechanical event that they could have some mechanical damage, that is certainly something that we want to prevent anywhere in the area of the battery. So we haven't discussed that yet with the church, but we certainly will now that we know that it's something that they do at least once a year, I would suppose.
Yes. Or yeah, maybe even be multiple. Yeah.
At least.
At least. Okay, so I do have a couple questions, but I want to see if my colleagues have any questions before I ask them. No. Okay, so one of the things that is still somewhat elusive to me about this is I know that this is sort of part of the climate action plan for the state to introduce more of these. And I know that they're supposed to help offset the reliance on, sort of more fossil fuel based energy. But you've said specifically that this isn't connected to a solar system. It's not connected to a wind system. And somehow it's helping reduce peak performance, which is why we introduced these systems in the first place. But for this particular one, can you explain a little bit how that works, just so we have a better understanding of it as well?
So specifically how this system will operate is that it's a battery, so it charges and then it discharges. It takes energy in and then it stores it, and then at some point, at whatever point you tell it to, it'll put that energy back into the system. And so the strategy with that is you can manage the stress on the distribution system and the stress on the electrical system in general by taking power off of the grid when there's no traffic, when things are very easy. So mostly the middle of the night, we'll be charging the batteries up when no one else really is using very much electricity, save for a couple things. And then during those high traffic hours, early afternoon, usually hot summer days, that's when we turn the batteries on. And when those batteries discharge, they're effectively reducing the work that the rest of the generation system has to do. That generation, because we're serving that power from the batteries, it doesn't have to be taken in from other places. And that's where the sort of replacement of some of the dirtier fossil fuel plants comes in, is that those plants, I was trying to say a moment ago, those plants only really run during the summertime, during really peak events when sort of everyone in New York has their air conditioner on at 4 p.m. on July 15th or something like that. And if that load during that peak time, 4 p.m. on July 15th, let's just say, if we're serving that load with our battery, then that fossil generator doesn't need to turn on. And so it's not, because this battery is quite small, it's not exactly a 1-for-1. It's sort of an aggregate sort of impact where, we install one of these in Ossining, and we install one a couple towns over in Yorktown, or whatever it may be, and then together those distributed assets as a group are able to prevent that one traditional fossil generator from needing to operate. And so it's a little bit of a sort of a team effort on these, with these sort of smaller battery systems to fully replace one of those older peaking fossil plants.
Is there any direct benefit to the community, like similar to like community solar, or, having this, facility in town? Like if we were to find ourselves in a bind during a weather event or something like that, is there any way for the community to locally to benefit?
So a couple things there. I'll address the weather one first. What these batteries don't do is provide backup generation like you would with a generator at your home. And so if an event has already happened, it's not going to get you through a blackout. What they're meant to do is help be a preventative measure from a blackout or a brownout happening in the first place by reducing the stress on the system. And so there is a benefit in that, I think what Greg was getting at earlier is, take batteries out of it for a second. As load growth on the distribution system continues to grow in your communities or whatever, Con Ed continues to upgrade their system with bigger and better stuff so that you don't experience brownouts. And that stuff raises your electrical rates when Con Ed makes those improvements. Having these systems in your community means that Con Ed doesn't have to install those new upgrades to keep up with the growing load of things like more air conditioning and electric cars, and so additional electrification that's that is it's sort of happening generally in society right now, as we sort of try to move away from more fuel-based economy to a more electric-based economy. So that's the blackouts versus, they don't help you recover from a blackout, they help you prevent a blackout. Going back a moment to what else is there in it for the community, the way these projects are monetized is a lot like a community solar project, in that they create bill credits, and there is some recipient of those bill credits who is going to get a reduction of their energy bill. And so when this product is ready to go into construction, we will be signing up electric customers to be participants in this project exactly as if it were a community solar project. It's the same program and crediting mechanism that the community solar program uses. It's just a different physical asset producing those credits.
Got it. And I mean, so you can target low-income households, renters, et cetera, with that?
We could. The setup of the battery program is a little bit different in that the community solar sort of needs to be made up a certain percentage of individual community DG prescribers, and then you can have subscribers, and then you can have like one larger anchor tenant that's like a town or a major business who's an electrical user. It's a little more open-ended for a battery system, because we're able to do it with what we want with that in terms of the mix of those two things. So we could either have a power purchase agreement with, you know, a town that takes up 100% of the battery's obligation for those credits, or a private business, or we could spread it out to end use customers, smaller end use customers as well. It's sort of open ended, and we haven't gotten to that point with this project, but I think we're certainly open to all structures if the town is if the town has more electrical appetite for something like a PPA. We'd certainly be interested in discussing the town with that, or if the town would like to, you know, broker something for its residents that was essentially a funnel to get residents into a subscribership for this type of project. I think we'd be interested in having that discussion as well.
Excellent. Very cool. And was there ever a point when you considered this location for solar? Just out of curiosity, since you're a solar company.
Yeah, not our organization specifically, and it's just a business model thing that we just go after bigger solar projects, and so we sort of need like 50 acres to get one of our product developers to roll out of bed. So this site wasn't a good fit for that, but that doesn't mean that the church may not pursue that at some point in the future with another organization. I'm not sure. We haven't discussed that with them at all. Got it.
Because we're just getting ready to hopefully have a canopy solar storage site in one of our other churches. So just, you know, it'd be interesting to pair with that. I don't know if that's a possibility down the road, but you know, so it would be interesting. Okay, I think, and then finally, I know that there were some questions about how close you were to our Croton River, Hudson River, and as we're seeing sea level rise, I want to have an understanding of your familiarity with the maps and the 80-year sea level rise. I think this is what is the lifespan of your facility? Is it 15, 20 years?
35 years, but the battery itself, we expect that lifetime to be 25.
Okay. And I know that there are a lot of pieces that are built in for decommissioning. So, you know, should you guys go down out of business, there's a lot of pieces that are required for you as part of, not only part of the model local law, but part of the local law we just adopted, but also I know as part of your application as well. So, you know, that's just critical to make sure that this doesn't have a negative impact on the environment when we're trying to actually do the opposite, but also that it's that we're protecting our precious waterways.
Yeah, I think just to speak to that, this site, we are elevated, I think 60 to 65 feet above the Hudson Croton River flood or tidal plain. However, and we also are observing that 100-foot setback. We aren't having any impact within that 100-foot setback, even though we are so high. The horizontal setback is still relatively close to our system. But this type of batteries, they don't have. It's not like a lead acid battery where there's like fluid in it. All the batteries are solid state. So if anything did happen to it, say, I can't even really think of something that would happen to it, but there's nothing to like leak out of it and like cause some sort of damage. It's not like a typical car battery or anything like that. So it's not going to infiltrate into the water. It just physically couldn't do that. So we're pretty comfortable that there won't be any impacts to the Hudson River or the Croton River.
Okay. Any other questions from my board colleagues? Haven't heard mine anyone's.
I have a question.
Okay.
Do you have any literature on this?
Yeah. What type of literature are you looking for?
Whatever you are talking about here. Because I don't understand a whole lot of what was just said.
Sure.
So if you could get it to Dana, I would appreciate it.
Okay. We'll
Yeah,
get it. Get it.
we submitted a site and safety memo to the town, which I think is pretty comprehensive. Describes, the civil ends of things, and also describes the battery technology, and a lot of safety elements are involved in that. And we'll be happy to share that with you.
Maybe you have the 1 or 2 page version. I think that wasn't that like a 60 page? I don't know. Maybe in the memo. I know there was a very lengthy application though.
Well, if it's 60 pages, I don't need.
We might have a shorter memo.
Yeah, we've got an 8-pager. That's by the end of it, you probably don't want to know more, but 8 pages is reasonable.
That's better.
Okay. Is that it? Any other questions? Everybody basically feeling good about moving this to the next stage, theoretically? Just consensus wise? And Councilman Wiltshire, when you get a little more information? And Councilman Meyer, was that a head shake in the right direction? Okay, in the yes. Okay. Okay, great. So let's just go to either Valerie or Christy for next steps. I know that you're continuing through the secret process with the planning board. This was just to get a sense of where we would stand in terms of approving a floating zone, which is similar to that blanket application, blanket approval that we were discussing. That would be the, I think the step for the town board, but I'm not exactly sure when we would be doing that. So you did mention it earlier, but.
So tonight, the board's not making a decision tonight. This is just preliminary for the board to, obviously it's a work session. So this is just very preliminary for the board to kind of hear about it and get a feel for it, because a zoning text amendment or a zone change, it's a legislative act, it's discretionary. So just to make sure that the board was comfortable with moving forward. Because the planning board is still doing SECRA, this board couldn't take action even if you wanted to until SECRA was complete. Because you didn't really come in as an involved agency under SECRA until the local law was passed, what I would recommend to put on for a resolution next week is consenting to the planning board being lead agency, just so that that process can continue going forward. One thing the board may want to discuss tonight, are there any specific environmental issues that you want to have conveyed to the planning board before they wrap up their SECRA review? If there are, then we can either do a memo or Valerie can convey it to the planning board at their next meeting. But that's pretty much what you're focused on right now, which is SECRA. And then once the planning board does presumably issue a neg deck, but make some SECRA determination ending that process, then it would come back to this board for a public hearing on the local law. So as far as environmental issues, is there anything specific that the board wants to have conveyed to the planning board?
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of those pieces. I just be cognizant of whatever the EAC and their due diligence had comments that they'd had. I know that there are going to be a lot of trees planted, and I know we have a big native plant specialist on our planning board, and so I would hope that you would make sure to heed the wisdom of that person, as well as any of the other people who are very protective of our waterways, also on our planning board, because those are, obviously critical issues for the town, to make sure that we do protect those. I know I did review a lot of the planning documents, and it did seem like a lot of those pieces were already in place, and I appreciate that. And the same with, the roadway, obviously getting out there and making sure that we're not creating more problems while trying to solve others. So I think that those are sort of the critical pieces, in my opinion. I don't know if the rest of the board has anything else.
I have a lot of confidence with our planning board, especially with our 2 very green members. I see that they're already addressing pollination and the screening in a big way. So I'm confident that board can handle it.
I feel the same.
Okay, so then we'll put a resolution on for next week for the town board to consent to the planning board being lead agency, just so that they don't have to go through the procedural hoops of sending out, recirculating the notice and waiting 30 days. So it'll just allow them to continue on as the process has been going. And then the applicant will come back to the town board once the planning board is done with seeker.
I would like to know where in the process the piece about negotiating how the, again, what, for lack of a better word, public funding process takes place and how we might be part of that conversation. And also a little bit of an understanding, because I'm not sure I have a total understanding yet of if you have for battery energy storage the same type of property tax benefits that the solar installations have, and if so, you know, that's, we had adopted a pilot local law, a solar pilot local law to allow us to negotiate a payment in lieu of taxes. It's, you know, for certain size solar systems, and that's something that, again, it's small, so I'm not sure if it is relevant, but it might be something worth discussing, and just like to understand where in the process that would take place.
Discussion on the real property tax law 487, the pilot exemption thing. I believe we've already sent one of the 2 letters to which the town is required to respond to opt out of the exemption, which would then begin the discussion of the pilot. And so we're happy to start that discussion with you as early as practical for you guys. You know, our sense was, you know, usually a jurisdiction likes to see us get to just about the finish line with the planning board to know that the project is going to get real before starting to discuss, just, you know, before taking people's time for those type of conversations. If that works for you guys, we can do that. We can start that conversation earlier if you'd like to as well. I think, you know, we're about 1/4 of an acre, and so our site is a bit smaller than a solar site. So I don't, it's generally not going to produce the same type of tax revenue that a solar facility would. So I think it's out of the, in the interest of transparency, just want to get that out there. So yeah, we'll follow your lead on that. If you guys want to start having those discussions, and certainly the discussion about whether the town is interested in the billing benefits of the project as well. I'm more than happy to start that as soon as you're ready.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll talk.
Yeah, that's not really in the purview of the planning board, so if that would be for the town board to focus on.
I understand that, but just in terms of approving a project, it's not clear to me, like if, you know, if that's part of the approval process, even though it might exactly be part of the planning board approval, until, you know, you don't want the whole thing to be finalized until you have all your ducks in a row. That's kind of my point. And I don't exactly know how that works within the scope of the process. So it's been explained to me, so I'm good now. Okay. So I think that's it. Unless anybody else has any questions, I thank you very much for your presentation, and we look forward to working together on the next steps.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. All right, so we have 2 more items for discussion, and our presentations are going to both be from our staff from the supervisor's office. Right now, we're going to be talking about a potential local law for filming in the town of Ossining. The town has had a longstanding practice of reviewing and approving requests to film on public and private property in the town, usually through the supervisor's office. However, the process has not been officially codified, and there are some opportunities to improve the process as well to make it easier and more appealing for both the town and the applicant. For our next local law of 2021, it seems to make sense to review our existing practice and look for opportunities to improve so we can be a more film-friendly town, which helps with our economic development goals. Karina Scorsia from my office has been doing research on how other communities handle film permitting, so I am going to hand it over to Karina to review her research and to guide us through our discussion. Karina, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
So I'm going to do a quick screen share here. Okay, so Dana pretty much summed it up perfectly for what this will cover. So I'll jump right in. Osening's proximity to the city means that production companies are kind of already considering our area when it comes to filming. Significant portions of Ossining fall within it's called the New York City Film Zone. And that's essentially workers' unions related to production companies consider anything that's within 30 miles of New York City to basically be New York City for some reason. So a significant portion of Ossining fits inside this film zone. Notably, North State Road is in the film zone, significant portions of Cedar Lane Park, most of the town of Ossining, notably T-Town falls outside that zone. But basically what this means is that it's cheaper for production companies to stay within this zone. And so they're already looking at neighborhoods like ours when they're considering projects. So our current procedure is about 5 steps before a project can be on location. We wait for residents and production companies to sort of guess our procedures though, and that's kind of where we lose a lot of time. Most of our requests are received by email, and those requests come in with basic questions. Do we allow filming? How much does it cost? What are the requirements from the town to move forward with a project? After we get that initial request, like I said, usually by email, then we give them an application, and then we try to follow up with them in a while. But apart from asking for a copy of their insurance, which is what we ask for with the return of the application, steps 1 and 2 really sort of cover the same general process. It's the same questions, it's just in a different format. It's whether they're getting back and forth in phone calls or lots of emails, or whether they are directly putting it on paper and requesting it from us. Okay, so I guess I'll read through the steps here. I'm not sure if you guys have them here. So the first one is just that informal request. The second one is when we provide that application and we request the insurance. Third, then we actually have the application in front of us. I'm going to suggest that we move this third step to sort of cover the first 2 and give us a little bit more time in the beginning. The fourth step is we have to go and decide whether the permit would be accepted, whether the application would be accepted. And that's, chatting with the police department, the parks department, highway, make sure that, they're not going to be closing down roads and stuff like that. And then the last step is just whether or not we give the yes or no. Okay, so this just covers how people find information on filming. If you look at our website, it's very difficult to find general information. You have to search the right word and then find it buried in other posts. It is a 3-page application and the fees are all the way at the end. So it isn't until someone has decided that they want to apply and have read through the whole application that they get any sense of how much this costs. And even at that point, they still have no understanding of our procedure in terms of how we accept film permits. Oh, and the other thing about this is because it's difficult to find on the website, we do get applications sometimes to the supervisor's office, sometimes through the clerk's office. And I know of one that moved through the police department first, because it makes sense. If you're thinking of being on public space, maybe you call the police first and ask them. So we really want to make sure to introduce a point of contact for them and let them know really our procedure so that people don't have to guess. This is our current fee schedule. Like I said, it's at the end of that application. It doesn't account for any special circumstances. And we only have 2 fees that we make public, and that's for filming in general in the town of Ossining, and then an additional fee if they're on town property, like at the municipal building or one of our parks. Okay, so moving forward, tonight we're discussing codifying our longstanding practices. This would be for commercial filming. not like filming a commercial, but not private filming. So someone making a TikTok in the park still doesn't have to bother everybody. And we have a student film program through the Ossining High School, and they wouldn't need something like this either. We would keep things very flexible. A lot of the other local municipalities have something on the books. It basically just allows you to revoke a permit and requires people to sort of be in contact in terms of scheduling. It does seem like a really helpful thing to have for especially those two practices. I just put a portion of Briarcliff's because theirs is very straightforward. Some people are much more simple. So it is pretty flexible, and almost all of them say, this is at the discretion of the town board or town supervisor. And it keeps things flexible and kind of, it keeps things flexible for the administrations. So the second piece we're suggesting to make Ossining more film friendly would be to update the fee schedule. So again, it doesn't have to be super complicated or nuanced. It just sets something in stone publicly that says how much people can expect to pay. It can still be flexible, but by burying it, we lose a lot of people right at the beginning when they ask how much it costs, because even though we're willing to negotiate, they have no sense of that. And it can seem overwhelming, I think, that someone like if North State Pizza wants to film a local commercial, at first glance, it looks like they would be paying the same price as, when Madam Secretary filmed in town. So you do want to give them a little bit more space, or you don't have to, but you want to give them a little bit more in terms of options. And then flexibility, like I said, it's really key. So people start with base fees in some of the municipalities and then add things on. I'll just show here, some different fees, whether it's public property or private property, whether it's on public land, overnight production, pyrotechnics, and it sort of lays out what we feel would impact residents, or what can kind of be done more quietly and privately. The third suggestion, is just to make the information more easily accessible. The town has a lot of really great sites. It's just pictures from, in general, the Supervisor's Drive. There's a lot of great things out there, and to just list a few makes it a little bit more friendly and familiar for scouts, location scouts, who already have a sense of what they're looking for, and there isn't so much guessing game. And then lastly, I'd like to suggest that we make the application available digitally, and that would be, so the clerk's office uses Seamless Docs, to use something like that. This way, that initial conversation where questions go back and forth, if you have a location scout or a local business who knows exactly what they want, they can simply apply. And then by the time we reach out, we have that piece of paper in front of them and we're clarifying instead of getting an initial read on the information. And I'm gonna stop sharing. So I know that was a lot, but that's just a general overview. And if you have any questions, I guess.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Karina, for all the work that you did and the research, as well as compiling some best practices. I think that, one of the things we did learn, I'm pretty sure the Village of Ossining doesn't have anything different. We have I think we have the exact same application as the Village does, and I'm not sure that they have anything digitally fillable either at this point. Maybe they do, and it's probably a little easier to find on their website because they updated their website a couple of years ago. But I do think that, certainly whatever we can do to make it easier for film companies to not only be attracted to the sites that we have here in Ossining that are possible for filming, but also to navigate in an easy, with some very easy searchable terms to find the information that they seek would be better, and having a flexible fee schedule so that is more conducive to different types of productions, whether they're documentaries or commercial productions or anything else, film, still shoots, still photo shoots, etc. And we have had all different kinds of productions approach us over the years, some recently. We did also look around other, again, other communities, other towns and villages and cities even do go through like the supervisor's office or the manager's office, and they get quick approval. And a lot of times, they do have these very tight turnaround times. I think that, the critical piece though, is that we don't really have anything that codifies this again in our law. And there, we could do something very easy like Village of Briarcliff has, which is just sort of simply saying, we just want to have something on the books to say that this is how it goes. And, or we could do something much more elaborate, like the town of Orangetown has, like 3-page local law spelling everything out. If we want to be sort of a little bit more lean and mean, I think we might want to do something more simple. But I do think that it makes sense to put something in place in our code to acknowledge that this is something that we allow, and that we have a process that has been in place for many years that we want to codify. And then obviously improving the process along the way. So let's go around with questions or suggestions or thoughts on this initiative / local law.
Well, thanks, Karina, for pulling all that all together and showing us the different applications from the different municipalities. I went through a couple of them, and now I don't remember if ours had a line that asked about parking, because I know with there was some filming at IFCA and there were like a lot of trucks, cars, that kind of thing. So I just want to make sure there's something in the application that makes a provision of where they're going to park, how many cars is it's going to be, that kind of thing. So we know that it's going to be somewhere, or at least someone's thinking about it, and we know that cars are going to be in this spot, so that'll be blocked off or something like that. And I also liked Briarcliff's or part of their application where they had the indemnification agreement. It was just looked really simple, and that they had a notification letter for residents and things like that. So it made it really simple. So you could just, if you're the filming company, it's kind of like, this is the package.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that as well.
Absolutely. I like that too. I like the notification of neighbors just being built right into it, the expectation. Right. Mm-hmm. Councilwoman Feldman, do you have something?
Yeah, I was just looking at the fee schedule, and our current fee is $1,400 a day for if you're in the town, and $1,400 a day in addition if you're on town property. And this one said $5,000 a day for a bigger commercial production. Are we gonna increase it for a bigger commercial production? Are we talking, is there a bigger conversation that we're about to have?
What was you said there was a $5,000 fee?
Didn't it say 5,000? Maybe I saw it wrong. For a commercial, the last page of fees that you put up. Did I read that wrong?
I'm sorry, let me just check.
Maybe that was an example. I don't know. Did you have the fee schedule? I can't remember if you included that.
Yeah, I think
I know that you did come up with something.
I think in the town of Newcastle, if you're a major commercial production on public property, it's $5,000 a day.
It might have been Newcastle's
That
fees.
might have
Okay.
been what you were looking at.
On that point, how's our fee compared to other municipalities?
It's really pretty different between every single place. There are some that go down to $10 or $50, and then there are some that are much higher than ours, around 3,000, or like Newcastle, much higher. So we're fairly competitive.
I went to a seminar about a year or so ago with the county about filming, and I think the city of Yonkers has no application fee. You just have to pay, like if you're using City Hall, there's this much money for City Hall. If you're using a street, it's this, but to get the application itself, they've made it $0, which was interesting. I think they're probably the only ones that do that, but there's a lot of varied practices in the county for sure.
There are also some municipalities that require a bond to be put up first, I guess in case you break things along the way.
Well, we do have somewhat hefty, I think did we send it to our insurance agent yet to review? And we're just waiting for feedback. I know that, one of the things that we want to make sure is that Jim Duffy does take a look at the insurance requirements. He's shared with us the expectation for insurance requirements when we've had film companies, that we always go through him to make sure that we're covered, that the town is covered. And that's always, I can't think of anybody who didn't provide insurance
Right.
at some point, even at the lowest level.
Yeah, and that might be something the board may want to consider allowing for some flexibility on, because I do know, having worked with Jim Duffy in some other situations, that if he reviews something and sees that there's something that's extraordinary about the project or not extraordinary about the projects, he can adjust the limits accordingly. So that might be something we want to consider in the local law to be able to, either protect us when somebody's coming to us with some crazy requests, like they're blowing something up or doing something crazy, and a little bit less so if it's, just a student production or some sort of smaller films. That's something we should probably consider as part of the process to ensure some flexibility depending on the situation.
And that was actually something that reminded me of the town of Clarkstown had something special for pyrotechnics, like they needed a special approval if there were pyrotechnics involved. Obviously, every production is different and has different requirements. And we do have really nice cemeteries that people like to film in, and lots of other beautiful spaces. But, if they want to do a car chase in Dale Cemetery, like that's going to be, challenging. So we really want to make sure that all of that was vetted. I'm not saying they're going to do that, Councilwoman Feldman. Just giving me
Seems like a very slow car chase.
Very slow car chase, yeah. They
Maybe
got
on
the
bicycles or
S-curves,
something.
and everything, like BMW making it. Okay, whatever. In any case. So are we basically in agreement, though, that this is something that we think we should codify in a local law, and that we should try to sort of come up with something that matches maybe some of our other neighboring communities, and then we can tweak the fee schedule to something that's, somewhat flexible. Again, I think that's key, is predictable, but also flexible. Right? So that it's something that, is easy to achieve. Like, yes, it's not that hard to film in the town of Ossining. Easy to find the information, what you got to do if you want to film here. And then, yes, we're flexible within, certain parameters. But, we want you to film here, because let's face it, when film companies come here for longer periods of time, not only do they bring cachet with their film shoot, but they also bring money, and they do spend money locally, and that's a good thing. And even if they don't spend it immediately, sometimes they come back again because they like our town so much, and we want them to do that.
And to Karina's point, having difficulty finding it on the website seems to be a challenge. So I hope we can work on that.
Yes, and that's something that we can obviously work on much more quickly, and hoping to have some proposal for a new website in the not too distant future. So that's, obviously something that we've been talking about for a while, and we feel like we need to move forward with that this year. Okay, so we'll continue in that direction, and I think our next steps would be just to come up with maybe drafting some proposed local law and an attached fee schedule. And we do have a couple good examples that we could use. So we're probably going to toss it to our council. Yes, no?
Well, I mean, if there's specific terms, predictable but flexible, that's not really a law. So
I'm going to send you Clarkstown's, because even though it's a lot more detailed than Briarcliff's is really simple, and it was up on the screen, so it's simple as could be. And then all of the other stuff goes into the basically into the application. But if we want to put some more stuff in our local law, we can look at Clarkstown and maybe find a balance.
do you want to put more stuff in your law? I mean, that's the direction that I need from the board to know. I mean, we could start with Clarkstown and then whittle it down. Or, start simple, but then, if you don't know what's in it, you don't know what you could put in it. So it's kind of like, if you have any guidance on what the starting point should be, it would make it easier for me to present something to the board.
I like to start with Clarkstown and whittle it down. So we start with more than I think we need and then get to something not too simple, but not too complicated.
I'm okay with starting with Clarkstown, but I don't want to end up with a complicated one.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would like it to be simple too. My question, I guess, Christy, is do we have to specify reasons for potential denial?
Well, that's certainly something, and that's, you know, because you have to treat them. There has to be equality in how these are treated, regardless of, you know, content or message. And so there have to be content neutral grounds if you're going to be denying these types of applications. So I understand wanting to be flexible, but there also has to be some concrete basis for how they're being assessed so that there can be any claim of arbitrary application. But that's certainly, Greg, that's something that we would have to look at when we're drafting it.
Great, thank you.
All right. Okay, so we'll send you over Clarkstown's and Briarcliffs and you can take a look and.
Yeah, I can just pull them off the e-codes.
Okay, great.
I just, you know, I don't want to do something and then, you know, send it to the board and it's not at all the direction you were thinking of going in. So this is helpful.
Okay, great. Alrighty, so next up and last up for this evening's work session is the Town of Ossining Public Employer Public Health Emergency Plan. In September, Governor Cuomo signed into law a requirement that all public employers develop a public health emergency plan to plan for any future health crises, like a pandemic, for example. Knock on wood, we never have to have or go through something like COVID-19 again. I have a feeling, unfortunately, that's probably not the case. So this is a good exercise that will undoubtedly assist us and future town administrations in any sort of emergency situation. I am going to turn it over to Victoria Caffarelli, who wears many hats in the town, including as our de facto Human Resources Director, to present a brief overview of our draft plan and next steps. Victoria.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now too. Okay, you guys can see that. No, I can't see. Okay. Oh, whoops. Nope. Sorry. This is Karina's presentation. One moment, please. Too many PowerPoints up. Okay. Can you see this now? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now I just need to, find myself here.
Slides.
Okay. It's just like the screen was too small. Okay. So thank you very much. So I'll try to go through this pretty quick since we're getting a little late. But yeah, so tonight we're presenting our public employer public health emergency plan. As the supervisor shared, the governor signed this into law in September. It was a law requiring that all public employers adopt a plan for operations in the event of some sort of public health crisis like a pandemic, so that we have certain things in place and plans in place for dealing with this sort of situation in the future. When we found out we had to do this, we sort of turned to our Town of Ossining COVID safety plan, which we had developed in May of 2020 with our Town of Ossining reopening operations task force, which included representatives from all town departments and also our justice court, where we came together and sort of identified where were some areas of potential risk, areas that we needed to improve before we reopened to the public in June. And this was, again, a good exercise. This wasn't something we were necessarily required to do by New York state law. This was required for private employers. And now obviously we have this requirement for public employers, but it was a good exercise to sort of identify some of those areas where we could make sure that our staff remains healthy and safe, especially our essential employees, during a situation like COVID. So we were provided with a template from our Labor Council, and then Karina also helped with sort of diving into that template and pulling out the relevant information from our previous plan. And it identifies a couple different items. First, with our identifying what are essential functions of the town and our essential positions, which I'll sort of go into more detail a little later. But also identifying how we can reduce risk through remote work and staggered shifts, which is something that we did employ during COVID. So it just identifies that certain, department heads can determine which employees can work effectively from home, and the town will obviously provide all these employees with whatever materials they need to work from home, which again, we did during COVID. So we sort of have a pretty good system set up for allowing for remote work, as well as staggered shifts, which is something we did use in our highway department at the beginning of the pandemic, which was effective at keeping them safe and healthy. It also describes how we will purchase personal protective equipment, store it, make it available for all employees. Right now we have it available to employees at 16 Croton Avenue, which is sort of a central location for everybody. We have also given each department sort of a store of PPE as they need, but we were able to secure that through some help with some of our other local municipalities purchasing that for our staff. Also identifies how to deal with staff exposure in cleaning, which is something we've sort of unfortunately had to put into practice during the COVID-19 pandemic, basically running that process out of the supervisor's office in coordination with the village personnel director in the event that it's an employee who works in a village building or has contact with the Village of Ossining employees, which is important for us to identify. If somebody works in a building owned by the Village of Ossining, they are responsible for the cleaning and disinfecting. In some of our town-owned buildings, we have a contractor that provides that service for us. It also identifies employee leave, which, specific to COVID, we have implemented the New York State emergency paid sick leave, as well as the federal emergency paid sick leave and emergency family medical leave when it was applicable. So the statement in the plan is sort of general because we don't really know what would come in the future, but that we would provide employees with their contractually obligated leave, as well as anything that may come down the pike from the state or federal government in whatever future situation may occur. It also identifies that work hours and work locations may change in the event of a public health emergency, which again is something we employed during COVID. We've obviously reduced our public access hours at 16 Croton Avenue and some of our other buildings. And it also identifies if we needed to provide housing for our essential employees. We obviously have great resources with the county to assist us if we ever needed to put up essential employees in a hotel or other sort of satellite location so that they could report to work if we needed them to do so. Okay, so now for our essential work in our positions, the plan identifies what the essential functions of the town are. Obviously, primarily emergency services, which we receive through an IMA through the Village of Ossining, as well as the Village of Briarcliff, and through the Mid-Hudson Ambulance District. So even though that is obviously of utmost importance, it's not really something we control, but it's still identified in the plan as something that's very important for us to maintain during an emergency like this. Similarly with IT, managing our databases and computers and all that stuff is very important. We do also receive those services through an IMA with the village, but it is very important. Then management and communications, communicating with the public. We also added health and welfare of the community, which includes our senior nutrition program, which provides food assistance to homebound seniors, which has been extremely important during the pandemic. And they also worked with Feeding Westchester for food distributions for the community. So they really are essential employees to the town. Also our cemetery, which is sort of something we didn't quite think of as essential until this, unfortunately, but it is important that our cemetery remains operational during a situation like this. And then finally, services required by law. So tax collection, our tax receiver, our town clerk, they have to issue vital statistics, which are death certificates, birth certificates, marriage certificates, things that continue no matter what's going on in the world, and as well as our justice court, which is obviously governed by the Office of Court Administration with the state and has to follow certain protocols from their office. But if we are required to operate those functions, that is essential. And I also just want to touch on something that we may not all think about with when you hear the word essential. What this plan is asking us to do is identify the people who are essential to the function of the town, but it's also essential that they report to work. So we have other employees who are just as important, just as essential to us continuing these operations, but they can do that remotely. Not so much for our senior nutrition program. They can't cook meals for seniors out of their own kitchens. So it's very important that they actually report to work, and we need to make sure that those employees remain safe and healthy during a potential emergency situation.
I think Councilwoman Feldman just offered her kitchen for cooking those meals.
Oh, you did? Okay. Sounds good. We'll add that to it. Councilwoman Feldman will cook everybody's meals. Okay.
No, she just offered the kitchen. She didn't say she'd just cook them.
Okay, the kitchen. All right. We'll send over the nutrition program staff. Okay. So for some next steps, obviously that was just some highlights of the plan. I think these are a lot of things we've been discussing at length through this whole process. It's going to be really great to have this documented and available to both the public and our employees and future administrations that might have to deal with this. And now they have a playbook based upon what we've sort of experienced over the past couple of months. So the next step is for us to present it to our department heads. We have a staff meeting tomorrow morning, so we'll be sharing this draft with them. But of course, what we based it on was a lot of input from them and a lot of teamwork over the course of the past year, basically dealing with the COVID situation. Then we also have to provide our draft plan to our collective bargaining units, so CSEA and Teamsters, by February 4th, for them to have an opportunity to review our draft plan and provide us with any recommendations or questions or whatever. And then finally, by law, the town board will have to adopt the plan by April 1st, and we have to provide it to our employees, post it in the work locations as well as on our website, so the general public could also see what is in our plan. So that is basically it. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and see if anybody has any questions.
And I would just like to give a shout out to Karina for putting this draft plan together. We did have some help from our Labor Council, Craig Olivo at Von Schenek, and Victoria, who pulled the original emergency plan for COVID together. So thank you all for your work putting this into a draft document that we can all comment on. So with that, I would just like to open it up to the town board for your comments, suggestions, thoughts, recommendations, or criticisms even. We'll take them.
I think it's a great, draft plan. I think it will be easily adoptable. I think it covers all the bases. I mean, having lived through it, you know what's important and what you already had to do. So this is what the state wants from us, just basically to codify?
Correct, yes. So the template we're working off of was, directly addresses all of the items that are in the law. So it was a helpful tool to have, so we make sure we cover all those bases.
Oh, it's a great time to make it when you're living through it. Now you know what you need.
That is very true.
Really.
Looks good. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just would like to say that, Victoria, you did a great job. Dana, you know who to pick to do those right jobs, right?
We have a good team. We have a good team. So.
Keep her on her toes. She's doing well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we have great presentations tonight and great work behind the scenes getting to this point. So we're very appreciative of both Victoria and Karina. Thank you. Anybody else have any other comments, questions, concerns? Anybody else developing their own plan that they think is better and they think we should work some of those items into it?
I have the opposite. I'm going to be adding some stuff from this one.
Okay, good. I was thinking of you, Jackie. I was hoping you're going to add whatever, if you had any good things. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so with that, we'll present it to our department heads tomorrow, and then we'll send it off to our unions on Thursday and wait for feedback, and hopefully we'll be able to adopt it in the not too distant future prior to our deadline of April 1st. All right, so guess what? That's it. Except that I would like to take a motion to adjourn to executive session for personnel, advice of counsel, and contracts. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten you, Steve Dewey and Fernando Gonzalez. Is there anybody here who would like to make such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So I forgot to mention it's Groundhog's Day today. So, if you didn't get enough of this meeting once, you can watch it again and again and again on YouTube. And I want to just thank everybody for joining us tonight in the middle of this snowstorm and pandemic. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, February 9th at 7:30 p.m. And the governor did extend, I think, till I want to say March 22nd, maybe. Is that right? or maybe it's February 22nd. Maybe we're just still in February, right? 1 month. In any case, still extended our ability to have meetings via Zoom or similar. And you can meet us and find us via Zoom or dial in by phone. Information for every meeting is posted on our website each Friday and included in my supervisor's update. So hope you all have a great night and stay safe out there. Bye-bye.